Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I wish I could be with you this afternoon, but I'm in Braunschweig, Germany, presenting a talk on the digitization of natural history collections at the fall conference of the German Natural History Museums. Nevertheless, I'm very happy to talk to you by video about the role and concepts of expositions on wolves. At this point, I would like to mention and to thank my co-authors, Peter Wanderler, Beat Hechle, and Klaus Robin, for their inputs and exchange on this issue. You will find all our contact data at the end of this presentation. When talking about wolves, it may help to remind oneself of some basic requirements of all living beings, including us as mankind. We all need the right environment or habitat, along with ample food resources. We need partners, and we need safety for us and our siblings. However, this simple system is not as simple as it seems. The requirements of the various species involved may clash. In Switzerland, we are stuck in the middle of this struggle. Both sides are beyond reasoning and have long left the ground of constructive discussions. At present, we are faced with a very rapid development of the wolf population in the mountainous areas, especially in the canton of Grisons. This requires constant adjustment when assessing the situation and especially when evaluating management choices and when taking decisions. So, what can exhibitions on wolves contribute in this situation to enhance understanding and acceptance on all sides? Why should we talk about wolves at all? There is probably no other animal in the Western world that provokes that many reactions. Wolves fascinate, wolves frighten. They certainly polarize us as a society, even now in the 21st century. Furthermore, wolves provoke the blending of myths and facts. Wolves have come back from the edge of extinction. Being highly adaptable animals, wolves migrate very successfully back to their ancestral ranges. Equally successfully, they also explore new habitats. Wolves and mankind have a long common history. They will share their future whether they like it or not. So what does that imply? Can exposition on wolves make a difference? And how can expositions succeed? Whether it's about apples or wolves, natural history always tells the stories of life. To all people, regardless of age, gender, profession, or social status. They must do this in a comprehensive, attractive, and scientifically sound way, beyond any personal or ideological views. Natural history museums provide the science-based platform to explore phenomena of nature and their impact on society, to form opinions based on facts, to exchange ideas, to debate, and to derive field of actions. As such, they are the extended arm of science into society. If the goal of an exhibition is to enhance the acceptance for large carnivores, we need to address the involved stakeholders with topmost priority. That's why the current situation in an area of interest should be addressed first of all. That means we need to identify the involved stakeholders, their needs, and their concerns. By involved, I mean the truly involved ones, for example, the sheep farmers who faces losses, and not the ones who pretend to be involved, the so-called co-outraged followers who think they can profit in one way or another for their own sake. It also means we need to address the distribution of the wolf, namely its population size, structure, and dynamics. We also have to look into habitat conditions and distribution of its natural prey. And we need to explore land use conditions and practices as well as the types and the distribution of livestock. Secondly, and just as important, we should talk about the animal itself. That means explain its biology and behavior. We already know a lot about it. However, we should also raise the question whether or not the new wolves behave differently. In particular, we should explore whether or not their behavioral plasticity is greater than what we assume or know so far. That's not all. We also need to talk about the history of its return. What are the reasons for the successful return of the wolf? What was the land use history? And what does that imply for today's land use patterns? And finally, most important, we have to know how to go on. How do we as a society want to react to the return of the large carnivores? Where and how much space do we want to grant them? To large carnivores in general, and most important, do wolves require a different approach compared to other large carnivores? If yes, why and how? Let's now talk about the expositions that were shown in Lucerne. The three different expositions show three different aspects of the wolves and provide a holistic approach to this animal. The first exposition is from the Museo d'Histoire Naturelle from Fribourg by Peter Wanderler. It's called Wolf, Back Again Among Us. Its main messages contain the coexistence of wolf and man, its extinction history and successful return, facts on biology and behavior, management options, and the perception of the wolf. The second exhibition is from the Alpine Museum of Switzerland by Beat Hechler, and it's actually an exposition on humans. It's called The Wolf is Here, an exposition on humans. Its main concept and messages contain the wolf is back, that's a fact, hence the wolf symbolizes the trespassing of boundaries, the debate on ecological, economic, and political values. The wolf in humanization, it talks about glorification versus diabolization, and it also talks about science and monitoring. The third exposition is from Klaus Roba and myself, and it deals with the behavior of wolves. It's a picture documentary on behavioral research covering 70 years. It goes along with the book called Wolf, eine Annäherung, or Wolf, an approximation. Its main message is from evildoer to the object of behavioral research, and the depiction of the wolf over time from the Renaissance to the modern recording methods of spatiotemporal patterns. The composition of these pictures give an impression of the exposition from Fribourg. On the right side, you see the section on mankind and wolves, cohabitation and domestication, as well as the extinction history. The left side gives an insight to the habitat development, the return of the wild ungulates, and thus the return of the wolf. The lower left side gives insights to the biology section. In the lower middle picture, you can see an interactive survey where visitors can express their perception on the wolf. And in the lower right corner, you can see a taxidermy specimen of the wolf that was shot in the 19th century in Fribourg, as well as in some interactive elements. In this picture, you can see how visitors are fascinated by taxidermy specimens, and in the middle where it's green, you can see a very typical visitor segment of natural history museums. It's a grandfather with his grandchildren. Again, some impressions of the Fribourg exhibitions. On the left side, you can see the descendants of the wolves. On the right side, you see a distribution map of the wolf in Switzerland. In the middle, some management options are shown, and in the central part of the picture, you can see two visitors that are fascinated by real-world objects. It's the taxidermy of a young male that was killed in 2017 in the canton of Uri by the game warden. It had killed more than 25 sheep within a time span of 3 weeks. I often use this example to explain overpredation by the wolf. This picture shows how we combined the expositions from Fribourg and Bern into one exposition in Lucerne. This picture shows the setup of the exhibition from Bern. The wolf is here, an exposition on humans. In the middle, you see a turning table with 2 wolves on it. They're called the bad and the good, and they symbolize the ambiguity we face the wolf with. On the left side, you can see the audio installations where you can listen to 8 stakeholder interviews. They're done with a game warden, a taxidermist, a livestock protection dog breeder, a geneticist, a shepherd, an environmental pedagogue, a sheep farmer, and a conservationist. In the back, you see the thematic wolf and society. On the far left, it's about migration, followed by politics, economy, and ecology, and then followed by the humanization table, and finally science and monitoring. And on the far right side, you can see the board where visitors can pin their opinions on the wolf on. This is a close-up of the 2 wolves. One is depicted in a very scary way. It's the bad wolf, and this is also very typical for old taxidermy approaches. Whereas today, taxidermy is done in a much more neutral way. The good wolf is shown in a neutral presentation. This is a nice example of how taxidermy specimens can be used in expositions. Furthermore, you can see these people listening intensely to these interviews, and while they do that, they have time to observe these taxidermy specimens and explore the exposition or explore the expressions of the wolves shown in this exposition. Again, another impression of the same exhibition. It shows how interested people are in this topic. Finally, some impressions of the exhibition by Klaus Roba on the depiction of the wolf over time. It comes as no surprise that Konrad Gessner, famous scientist in the 16th century, depicts the wolf as a nuisance in his handbook about animals, shown in the upper left corner. This attitude continues and gains ground again today. Friedrich von Tschudi, a scientist in the 19th century, draws a somber picture of the wolf as well. The first edition of his book, Tiere der Alpen, Animals of the Alps, appears in 1890, the last edition in 1944, after his death. Interestingly, Rudolf Schenkel, a Swiss zoologist and professor in Basel and Zurich, draws a very different picture in the 40s of the 20th century. He was the first to investigate wolf behavior in zoo populations and come up with fundamental results on wolves in captivity. He also created the concept of alpha and beta wolves in captivity. As he was a gifted artist as well, he drew very precise sketches of what he observed, shown in the middle of this slide. And our co-author, Klaus Roba, who many of you know, is a very gifted and passionate wildlife photographer who spends hours, weeks, if not months, to captivate such moments for the benefit of all who do not have the opportunity to observe animals so closely. And sometimes it helps to deliver the message with a little bit of humor. On the left side, you can see an exhibition station that provides audio samples of wolf howls depicted by toy wolves. On the right side, you can see a cartoon showing wolves in a car. The border police officer asks, "What is the purpose of your journey?" The wolves answer, "I return back to my home country." And if you look closely, you can see other tourists that will certainly not gain access to Switzerland as there are crocodiles. So let's come back to the initial question. Can expositions on wolves make a difference? That's not easy to say or to quantify. However, so far, almost 300,000 visitors have seen the exhibitions at 9 different locations in Switzerland: Fribourg, Bern, Lucerne, Valais, Thurgau, Gießen 2 times, and in Zurich 2 times as well, and 1 more station is to come in the Jura Mountains. Concerning the perception, one can say that most visitors reacted positively both to the exhibitions as well as to the presence of the wolf. However, we have to keep in mind that most visitors have an urban background. That was the situation in 2019. Today, in September 21, we have a very different situation. The wolf population in Switzerland grows rapidly. In September 21, 15 packs were reported. In May 21, the revised federal hunting law was rejected very narrowly by a popular vote. Its acceptance would have allowed the cantons to intervene sooner and independent from federal authorities. The result is that the urban-rural gap is widening, especially between mountain farmers and city residents, as well as authorities. So, how can future large carnivore expositions succeed? What must be their main message? There is only one way. We all have to find a way to deal with the wolf and large carnivores in general. In particular, we need to build bridges between polarized groups. We also have to reach out to those who have not made up their minds yet. We should not get engaged in wildlife romance, but show respect for the animals and the human stakeholders. In other words, we should avoid pouring oil to the fire by all means. Now let's get to the more practical side of things. When planning and building an exhibition, you have to consider a lot of points, namely, who are the addressees? Is it a permanent or traveling exposition? How much space is needed or available? Who provides the content? What is your available staff, scientists, pedagogues, technicians? What are the available exhibition objects? How many languages are needed? Are you planning to do the scenography in-house or by external specialists? What is your available budget for the development and the operation of the exhibition? What is the duration of the exhibition, or what is its anticipated lifespan? What are the advertising, dissemination, and rental rates? And are you going to support those who want to borrow the exhibitions? And you definitely need to look at the so-called small print, la piccola stampa. The shown numbers are valid for Switzerland, however, they provide the necessary order of magnitude. Fribourg, Bern, and Lucerne spent together about 230,000 Swiss francs to build their exhibitions. That's what they paid in cash. Usually, you also have to consider your in-kind contributions. As a rule of thumb, you can just double your amount of cash and you get a realistic price to build an exhibition. Altogether, this sums up of roughly 2,300 Swiss francs per square meter. And last but not least at all, I would like to say a word about the scenographers that were involved in these 3 exhibitions. Successful exhibitions depend on good and sensitive scenographers. Without their understanding of the topic and you as the persons who provide the contents, exhibitions do not catch the heart and the eyes of you visitors. Good and trustful collaboration with them is essential for the successful completion of an exhibition. In Lucerne, I was very lucky to be able to work with these 4 persons. On the left, you see Corrado Luisotto from graphics. He is their art director and a graphic artist. Corrado did the exposition Wolf Back Again Among Us. And by the way, Corrado is half Italian. He speaks perfectly Italian, and he has also a little house close to the Aosta Valley. In the middle, you can see Philip Clements. He was responsible for The Wolf is Here in Bern. He is a long-term graphic artist, scenographer, and teacher at the University of Applied Science in Lucerne. And on the right side, you see Martina Pelosi and Julia Reichle from Cian. They're both graphic artists. We have been collaborating for a long time. They were responsible for the exhibition on the behavior of wolves and the book Wolf: An Approach. At this point, a great thank you to all of you. You have been wonderful to collaborate. That's it. Thanks a lot for your attention. I wish I could answer your questions right now directly, but don't hesitate to contact us. Our exhibition data are still available, and we would be pleased if we could support you if you wish so. Bye-bye.